You orchestrated, but they actually did the work. And so nobody needs to tell you that. You also feel good when you see that your team is recognized because you know that's a reflection of your leadership. It takes a certain level of maturity before you get there.
The emotional tax, right? Na kasama talaga siya eh.
Yes.
Wala
Kasama
kang,
talaga siya.
hindi mo may iwas. Lalo na because we're investing in our people, in our teams. And we're all in when we invest. I will gladly pay, again, all of those.
As I matured and as I went through much more difficult and much more critical crisis in my career, I figured out that the how is as important. And who you take with you and how they emerge out of that crisis. Are they in one piece or did I break them in the process is as important. That changed significantly in who I am as a leader.
In episode 7, I had mentioned that we were kicking off our cost arc.
Yes.
So the next few episodes will really focus on the cost of different things in life.
Yes.
Diba? So the cost of, today we're going to talk about the cost of leadership. But it's the cost that is worth paying for.
So the good side naman.
Yes,
Right,
the good
oo.
side.
Kasi yung dati nating sabi nila, reklamador tayo.
Ikaw
Oo, reklamador daw
Ako
si
daw,
Tonichi.
reklamador.
Yeah, episode 3, we spoke about
Yan,
the
episode
brutal
3.
truths of leadership.
That's right.
And we got messages, comments saying na maybe you can talk about the good side naman. Kasi puro reklamo daw si Tonichi.
Yes.
Reklamador ka
Oo.
daw ako, ganon.
Okay, dahil mabait kami.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about that today. So, exciting. Okay.
We're very excited. Okay, so let's get started. This is the side of leadership that a lot of people don't really spend a lot of time talking about. We take it for granted to some degree. So let me start by asking the first question. The first question is, what is one leadership moment or experience that you still carry with you in a good way?
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Una ka lang
Talaga.
dito, Miss
Nakatagal ng
Philippines.
retrospection. Okay, for me, a moment kailangan talaga moment.
Pwedeng
Okay,
experience.
sige. I think for me, yung one thing that stayed with me is when I witnessed my leader or one of my bosses who stood up for the entire team during a very difficult conversation with a client. That to me spelled out what true leadership was about. Kasi we're so used to, the accolades, ganyan, yung very good si leader. But
Yeah.
that moment, the client was looking for somebody who will take accountability. And in a boardroom with all the rest of the other members of the team, and you have a country manager who's gonna say, okay, this happened under my leadership, so I take full responsibility. We promise not to let it happen again. That moment stayed with me because I thought, okay, now that's the kind of leader I want to be and to become for my team. So until now, ganon. I tried to. It's sometimes very hard to stand up, lalo na pag
Yes.
if the people that you're in front of are so angry, diba? Emotional. And so to be able to have the courage to stand up and say, my fault,
Yeah.
I'll take responsibility for it.
You know what? I have a similar story, but I just want to say, that's not my moment. I have many moments. Pero yung moment na yan naman is a boss as well. Ang pag-stand up niya naman was to say to the client, are you calling my team liars? Kasi we were presenting an action plan and then the client kept saying, that's not happening, that's not happening. And he stopped the client and said, I don't appreciate that you're calling my team liars. And I was a very young leader back then. And I was really so blown away. Like, wow. Because he was not taking it. It's somebody we all know.
Yeah.
He was not taking it. And it was a great moment. And now, in retrospect, iniisip ko, parang hindi ko I don't know that I could.
You can say it that way.
That way, oo. But it was a great moment. But, ang dami kong kwento.
Ang dami mong
I'm sorry.
Bat.
Ito na, my leadership moment. Not so much a tapos
Hindi
di
ba
naman
yun yung moment mo?
No, it's when someone I believed in and continue to believe in, I saw her starting to believe in herself as well. Kasi we spend a lot of time, diba? We see people that we really have so much faith in, but sometimes they don't see that in
Yeah.
themselves, the great
They don't
potential we
believe in
see.
themselves.
Yes, and then when you see them come into themselves, come into that moment of, yes, I can do it, it's wonderful
Yeah,
to
that's
see
true.
that. And they start having the courage and everything that
Yeah.
it takes to reach their potential. So that for me is one of the best feelings.
Leadership.
And what about you?
Ako, many years ago,
Nakamany
Nakamany.
ito.
Many years ago, hindi naman very early on, but I'd say, some years into my leadership role, I was plucked out of an account that I enjoyed a lot. Like this account has taught me really what it means to be successful. I was beating all metrics
Yeah.
left and right, winning accolades year on year for this particular client. And then my leadership calls me and says, Claire, we need you to help us turn around the specific account. I had to come out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, this account that they're asking me to turn around, I just got off of. So, kaka-graduate ko lang sa account na yon, I think 2-3 years back. And that account at that time was so huge for the organization. In fact, it was the biggest account for the organization that, we call it, biruan namin is Alcatraz. Once you get in there, you can't go
get
out.
out.
Kasi
Yeah.
talagang that's how tough and that's how important and critical that account was. So finally, I graduated my stint. Labas na ako. I went into a new account. This new account was also very big, very important client. But I was enjoying myself during that time. And then they called me nga, can you come back? Because the other account where I came from was in deep trouble.
Yeah.
In fact, we were served a 90-day breach notice. So I had 90 days, 3 months to turn it around. Long story short, it was a very arduous task to complete. We had to let go a lot of people. It wasn't just about not meeting the metrics or the performance standards. There was also talks about irregularities, hygiene, fraud,
Yeah.
manipulation. The difficulty of those situations is even when you're starting to make progress, they halt the celebration or the winning eh. Kasi
Yeah.
you now have to come to the, okay, yan ba ay done through the right way and
Yes.
wala bang manipulation na nangyari dyan. So aside from just turning around the performance, there's also that perception that you now need to battle with. And you have to be very conscious about that. So you can imagine that journey day on day on day. And I remember for those 90 days, I kid you not, I did not take a day off. Like, yes, I would not be physically in the office, but I would be checking my emails. I would be checking my chat rooms and, okay, are we meeting goals today? You know, and that account was both tech and sales at that time. So after, I think on the 75th, 70 something day, we finally got off the breach notice. It was a huge, I remember feeling it off my chest.
Yeah.
Yung talagang,
Hininga mo.
as in,
Yeah.
that
That's true.
heaviness
Yeah.
in my chest, right? Seeing my team get through that crisis, I had to hold back my tears. Gusto ko talagang maiyak sa tuwa. And looking at the faces of the leaders who survived that with me was a defining leadership moment for me and for them. And I remember telling myself, I need to take a backseat. I need to take a backseat from this moment because I want them to feel how it is to win and how it is to really succeed on something after a tumultuous weeks on weeks, right? And that stuck with me until this day. I still carry that leadership moment.
The story of our lives, no?
Yes.
You're comfortable with something and you get locked out. I'm
Yes.
sure a lot of
Here's
you
a new
guys.
thing to do.
Yeah.
Oo.
New
Ang saya-saya ng
challenge.
buhay
Ang
mo,
saya-saya ng buhay mo.
ganyan.
And kasi parati ako tinatanong, kung kailan naman enjoy ka na.
Yes.
Lilipat ka. Well, that's life.
Yeah.
Correct. Lilipat. Yes.
Nililipat
nililipat.
ng account.
Nililipat.
Ay, grabe.
Okay.
Kala ko lilipat
Hindi,
ka.
walang ganun.
Lilinawin mo.
Oo, walang ganun.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Actually, Claire, you talked about it a little bit, no? When you see your leadership change people, change a team. What about a time when leadership changed you as well, or leading a team has changed you?
Oh, yeah. In the toughest of the moments or the tasks, the functions, the assignments that we take, that we say yes to, I truly believe that's the most critical time that you come to know who you really are as a leader. When will you stand in front? When will you take a back seat? When will you be the leader that will take charge or will let them collaborate and
Yeah.
facilitate that collaboration? No? In many times in my career, I've handled crisis situations. Meron na ako, I've developed that muscle and the image, actually, the reputation. That's the word that I was looking for. The reputation of being the problem solver, the
Yep.
janitor fish, yung
Yep,
tagalinis ng
yep,
kalat, no?
Yeah.
And in those moments, I remember changing what I believed winning was. The definition of winning to me changed very significantly. Because in younger years, I thought, basta magawa, basta matapos, basta ma-meet namin yung goal.
Yep.
I don't care about the process. But later on, as I matured and as I went through much more difficult and much more critical crisis in my career, I figured out that the how is as important. And who you take with you and how they emerge out of that crisis.
Yep.
Are they in one piece or did I break them in the
Yeah.
process? Is as important. That changed significantly in who I am as a leader.
I think it's important when we see our team succeed that we, and you also referenced this now, we be very careful about hijacking that experience and making it about ourselves.
That's true.
Because it's so easy to do that. And so, I mean, a lot of leaders actually do that.
Yeah.
Diba? And so, if you are able to rein yourself in, I think that has to be a big part of what you as a leader should work on. And a lot of people fail at
Forget,
that. Yes.
forget that that's really important.
Because automatically, a lot of the
Credit.
kudos, yes, the credit goes to you.
Of course.
As the leader.
Yeah, kaya kanina, di ba, when I was talking about turning around that crisis, I had to consciously take a back
Yeah.
seat because I know that they were going to give the credit to me. But in reality, it's the team who toiled on it. Of
Yeah.
course, strategy, etc. I'm behind them, but you just have to be very careful on those moments that they take in that shining moment for themselves,
Yeah.
not for you.
Yes.
Agree.
Yeah, most of the leaders actually today, I think it's common when you're a younger leader.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
when
what,
you're
yeah.
much more junior and you feel like you're trying to prove yourself in that
Yes.
new role, or
That's true.
meron ka pang aspirations to think that or to believe that leadership is about heroics.
Right.
That I have to solve this.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
have to get them over this. I have to be the bida
Yep.
and the
Yes.
hero. And as you mature, right? As you mature, as you gain more accolades, more experiences, it comes to you naturally naman, I think. Unless medyo iba talaga yung wiring mo, no? But it comes naturally that you then realize it doesn't have to be about you all the time. And you tend to give that back to the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you come to a point na, yes, the results are important, but it doesn't necessarily equate to my worth as a leader, right? And not taking that credit doesn't mean that I didn't do my job as their leader.
Yeah.
Ako, I'll take the credit. Hindi. I think, no, that's powerful, right? Kasi parang internally, you know what you've done for the team.
Yes.
Diba? Kinumpas mo yun eh. Diba? You orchestrated, but they actually did the work, right? You were behind them, beside them. And so, nobody needs to tell you that.
Yeah.
Diba? That's why I think you get to a point in your career where you're very confident about that and that's very secured in yourself. So you also feel good when you see that your team is recognized because you know
Yes.
that's a reflection of your leadership.
That's
It
true.
takes a certain level of
Maturity.
maturity before you get there,
Yes.
diba?
Yes. That's why it's a tougher lesson for younger leaders.
Yeah.
And it takes a multiple of those experiences
Yes.
before
Yes,
you get.
definitely.
Truth.
When we think about the good parts of leadership, right? What are some leadership joys? And we've talked about a couple of them. When we see someone grow, when we see our teams recognized, what are some leadership joys that people tend to overlook or hindi natin masyadong pinapansin, pero it actually can impact us in such a big way. For example, maybe when we see a leader that we've helped grow now taking on that same
Yeah.
mission and
Yeah.
desire to bring someone else along, right? And it shows na the DNA of their own leadership has also matured, and you were a big part of that. And in the industry, our industry, there are so many young leaders, and we have, ang tanda na kasi natin, we have all
Ako sa'yo.
collectively worked with so many
Yeah.
of these young leaders.
Not one, but hundreds.
Hundreds. So many of them. Yes, hundreds. Maka hundreds. Sige. Pero also, we were brought up by so many
Oh, yeah.
great
That's true.
leaders.
That's true.
And learning from them also is a great joy. No?
Yeah.
So let's talk about those leaders. Let's talk about our favorite leaders. Naghahanap ng sip-sip moment sa mga boss. I'm just kidding. But maybe let's talk about leadership traits. Great leaders that we've worked with. What are some of the traits that we see and we think that we want people to try and imbibe?
I think it takes a certain kind of leader to have a natural way of making you feel good about yourself. Diba? I think sometimes when you're coaching someone or you're mentoring someone, the person you're coaching or the person you're mentoring won't get it right away. Sometimes it takes a few days, a month, or even years.
Yeah.
So for when I receive like messages years later saying, now I understand what you were talking about, it gives you a sense of satisfaction. It makes it all worth it. Diba? Because sometimes they will resent what you're telling them, but eventually it will click. So when you see people who you used to work with who become leaders themselves, that to me is the greatest joy or payback, I guess. Diba?
Ano ba gusto mo
100%.
malaman? The trait or the joy?
Pareho.
Okay. Trait, I think the most important thing to me, as 25 years, many leaders have taught me, guided me, directed me in many shapes or forms. I think the ones that stick with me, both in my mind and in my heart, are the most authentic ones. The ones who are not there for the performance. And when I say performance, not so much the metrics, but really just, showcasing, performing for the room, the heroics. Because the heroics is always easy,
Very.
right?
Yes.
You come, you swoop in, you feel like you're the messiah, you clean up
Yes.
things, diba? And then you leave.
Yes.
Tapos yun na, everything falls apart.
Yeah.
But the ones that are really authentic, who truly cares, not just about the business,
Yes.
the account, but the people that they work with,
Yes.
they tend to really linger until the lessons stay with the people that they work with.
Yeah.
There's a real intentional, right? Interest or desire to transfer the knowledge, the skill, the capability. Yung mga leaders na yun who are very generous with sharing their talent, their know-how, and their experiences, they've stuck with me through the many years, and they will continue to stick with me as I go through my journey. That's the trait, I guess.
Yeah.
When it comes to the joy, yung silent joy that people don't celebrate enough or I think are overlooked, the lack of anxiety, ang hirap ma-achieve nun kapag magaling ang leader mo. You don't feel like when everything is quiet, ano naman kayo mangyayari. You don't look at it. When things are quiet, you don't look at it like it's the calm before the storm. You look at it as the time of alignment. You look at it as this is the time that we recalibrate, we refocus ourselves on what's important. Everything is humming along.
Yeah.
And everything is, it seems like it's a well-oiled machine
Yep.
that's running. Hindi yung para kang laging nangangamba na, ano na naman mangyari bukas. Diba? Bukas meron na namang masisira dito and we're gonna get an escalation from the client and somebody's gonna throw a fit, etc., etc. And that's a very toxic culture or work environment to be in.
Yeah.
So I think if a leader can provide that kind of environment when people think that silence and quietness is stability, it's not calm before the storm, that's a joy. That's a deep leadership joy that I celebrate. Di kasi ako for the the
Heroic.
crisis moments. I mean, of course,
steadfast,
those are
consistent.
yes.
Yes. Ako, one trait that I will say stuck with me with the leaders that I've worked with, the bosses I've reported to, the mentors I've had would be the ability to, first of all, not give up on people, to be able to hand over heart, say, I will do everything for you before I step away or, give you the exit. But also the ability to know when to give up
Yeah.
on people. And
Mahirap yun.
mahirap
That's a very
siya.
difficult
Oo.
balance.
Parehong mahirap. I think it's easy sometimes to think na pag, obviously nagawa mo na lahat, go na. But sometimes you're in that situation so deep, you don't realize na ano pa ba ang kailangan niyang gawin para
Right.
mapatunayan na hindi talaga siya para sa trabahong ito. So yun, I think that there are leaders who are very good at that have that capability to know when the right time is. Sometimes we misjudge.
Yes.
So some of the best leaders are able to do that.
Timing. Determining the right timing.
So first,
Define mo muna, passing the
DNA. Define it. My definition of passing the DNA, I think for me, it's really about, and Claire mentioned some of this, transferring the skills, definitely, transferring the practices, transferring the frameworks that work, no? But beyond that, I think it's transferring the core authenticity.
Fundamentals.
Yes, the authentic and the fundamental, the foundation of the leadership style and culture that you are wanting your team to embrace. A lot of the culture in a team is really driven by the leader. And we see that all the time na, kaya ganyan kasi yung boss ganito.
Yes.
So I think that is a form of that, of the passing of the DNA. People absorb it.
Are we
People who you
intentional
are.
about it?
What do you think?
In some cases, I think we're intentional because we also know, for me, there are the variation within the teams and the different personalities that we're dealing with. Some would accept it, some won't. And it's okay, right? But I do think...
In-answer niya na yung pangatlong question.
So,
Diba? Ganun siya ka-advance.
ayun na nga.
Go ahead.
So,
Larah.
nakalimutan
Sorry.
ko tuloy yung tanong ko. So, are we intentional? So, I do think we are intentional at times. It cannot be that you're always insisting on the DNA to be passed on to somebody. There will be others who will take it and others who will just take note of it and then move on. Diba?
That's true, but I am very intentional. And I think it comes from the discipline of operations kasi that's my, you know, you have to have certain fundamentals. A few examples. Number one, governance, right? That's a leadership fundamental. It has to be in your DNA that you have a very tight governance. Second, communication.
Yes.
Right? It has to be, when you set expectations, there's clarity, there's timelines, there's who owns it, etc. So those things are sort of what you call them non-negotiable, right? So those I intentionally pass them on. That's what I think you mean by saying there are frameworks that has worked many, many decades ago and are still very much applicable to today. If they want to take it and make it into their own, of course, by all means, right? But I can tell you this, not working or not taking in any of those, at least a semblance of it,
naman.
hindi ka magsasucceed.
Correct.
Right? It's going to be very difficult for you to lead and to take on a role where you have to manage people without those particular fundamentals. So I'm very intentional about it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
May audience tayo dito.
May audience.
May live audience tayo.
At ang dami niyang tanong,
Oo, at magaganda naman ang mga tanong niya, actually. Okay, here's our next question. What has leadership cost you that you will choose again or you will pay
Do again,
again?
yeah.
Na kahit na that's what it cost me, I will be okay.
Alam mo, thank God, na nung nag-start tayo, early 20s, ang lakas pa ng katawan natin. Right?
Yes.
I think the cost that I would gladly pay for again, sleepless nights or days. Kasi night tayo nagtatrabaho.
Yes.
So sleepless days. And the physical exhaustion of it. Kasi during our time, nung panahon po
Oo.
namin, marami pang hindi automated.
Oh my
At
gosh.
Oh my
a lot of
Wag
it was
nating
manual,
alalahanin.
right?
Yeah.
Like writing an appraisal was like an essay writing
Oh my
contest.
God.
Yes. Di ba pwede pare-pareho?
Putting
Oh.
together a deck.
Yes.
Diba? Talagang kailangan mong gumawa sa Excel, gawin yung graph na yan,
Yes.
embedded
My
it into
God.
PowerPoint, etc., etc. And I think that's why we all have that skill, right?
Yes.
But the cost of physical exhaustion,
Yep.
very long hours, sleepless days. I was telling Larah one time na in one of my QBRs, I stayed, I think, 48 hours ako sa office. Na hindi ako umuwi Kasi nap lang ako sa lounge, sleeping lounge, to get a few hours of battery and then come back in because I was
Yep.
preparing for a huge QBR for that account that I was talking about earlier. So, looking back now, salamat sa Diyos, malakas pa yung katawan natin noon. Looking back now, I would pay for that price again. I think it's all worth it.
Yeah.
I believe it's
I 100% agree. Plus emotional bandwidth na yun kasi
mahaba pa yung pasensya mo noon.
oo, mahaba. At
Mahaba
saka
na yun?
mas may resilience. Oo,
Kaya
mahaba
pala
na yung
ganito
mga
lang
time na
natira
yun.
ngayon. Okay.
Naubos
Ubus
na.
na.
Oo. Inabuso na rin kasi. Biglang may ganun pag-rant. But yeah, I mean, the emotional tax, right? Na kasama talaga siya eh.
Yes.
Wala
Kasama
kang,
talaga siya.
hindi mo may iwas. Lalo na because we're investing in our people, in our
Yes.
teams. And we're all in when we
Yeah.
invest, So I will gladly pay again all of those because the merits are so worth it. So worth it.
At nung time na yun, syempre, commuter tayo.
Oo.
Well kami.
Uy, grabe naman.
So, syempre, di ba, yung physical tax nun sa katawan mo,
Oo naman.
na late ka na log out, tirik na tirik yung araw, ang init-init,
Yeah.
mag-aantay ka pa ng public transport.
Yeah.
Hindi madali yun. Yes, nakikiyak ka.
Oh,
Naiintindihan
no,
mo ba
hindi.
talaga to?
Iniisip ko.
Okay.
relate ako sa tirik na tirik, ang
Oo.
init.
Ayun,
Naghihintay ka
okay.
sa
Maghihintay ka
sundo
ng
mo.
sundo mo. Oo. Hindi yung...
Naghihintay ka na sa... hindi, totoo naman. Tsaka yung...
Iba yun.
Oo, tsaka
iba
yung you're a young leader, tapos marami kang critics. Tapos, they're like,
Yes.
ay, grabe yung boss nyo, ganito, ganito. Or, gosh, I remember nung bagong promote akong director, and we used to have these forums, and then people would say stuff there, and you were like, gusto kong sumagot dito. Yung ganun yung feeling mo na, you wanna defend yourself, those are all part of the journey.
That's the cost.
Yes.
That's part of the cost that you pay.
Yes. And will I pay again if I had to? Yes, because
Absolutely.
that
Look at you
hardened
now.
us. Yes, because now
Because it
the
pays.
skin of now you are so thick skin, That is the balat sibuyas gone.
No more.
No more balat
No more,
sibuyas.
yeah.
Only balat, I don't know what.
Kalabaw.
Kalabaw,
Oh,
okay.
see?
Yes. Okay.
Ako siguro
Ikaw.
for me, it's the investment in time. I mean, yes, in the previous episodes, we kind of talked about that, right? We
Yeah.
complained about it. But looking back, because I know that I was also intentional in investing time in building relationships and building my skills. And I will do it all over again. Why? Because I think that I became the leader that I am today because I believed in investing time with people that I wanted to mentor, that I wanted to coach, and I wanted to learn from. So talagang mapupuyat ako, yes. Para makinig ako sa kung anong talk yan or if I really want to listen to a leader who's talking in an event, I would really make the effort to go there even if it's early in the morning or late at night. And yung mga, when we were younger, ang daming team buildings, right? Yung imbitahin ka dito. Yung kahit pagod ka na, you'll go and it takes so much of your time, but you would do it anyway because that's when you learn another side of the people that you're working with.
That's
and
true.
the way you lead them will also be shaped with how much you know of them and their
The
families,
relationship that
right?
you have
That's
with them.
true.
That's true.
Let's close the episode by answering this question. What kind of leader do you hope people remember you as or remember you to be?
I feel so strongly about the desire to leave an impact towards people's lives, right? I remember thinking about when did leadership matter to me in a way na it's not only about work. It mattered to me in that way. It became much more meaningful when I saw how what we do, the work that we do, the industry that we try to contribute has changed people's lives. And that's when I knew that leadership was worth it. That's
Yeah.
when I felt like, okay, lahat ng pagod, lahat ng hirap, lahat ng sakripisyo was well worth it because it was changing people's lives. And that's how I want to be remembered by, that I was able to impact or give a little bit of myself into their lives
Yeah.
to better their lives, whether that's through the skill that they got, a lesson that they learned from me, the win that we had. Because as a leader, when you win, there's a lot of people who win with you.
Yes.
And maisingit ko lang, no? I think that's an important realization when you're a leader. People think that when you're a leader, you're so addicted to winning, winning, winning. Kasi in reality, when leaders win, they carry a lot of people winning with them.
Yep.
It's building something where it's strong enough, solid enough that you can carry people with that success. And it's not about greed. It's not about wanting more to have more for the sake of having more. But it's really that. It's building something so strong, so big, so solid that you can carry others with you, that you can carry others along that success. And if that is a positive impact towards others, at least a small difference in their lives, I think that's the kind of leader that I want to be remembered by.
For me, the
Nagtingin kayo.
tinignan ko kasi kung bumubuelo ka na sumunod. But for me, the kind of leader who grew them without erasing who they were,
Yeah.
without shrinking who they were. You know me, I'm very much myself.
Prescriptive? Is that the word?
Well,
that you're
no,
looking
I
for?
know. I was gonna say I like to celebrate people as they are. Like however you are, go. I want my team to think of me as the kind of leader who enabled them to grow, but
Flourish
also
on their own.
yes, but also flourish on their own and as themselves.
Yeah.
Because when we try to teach others, we have a tendency to kind of mold them into
That's true.
ourselves, right?
true.
And not everybody can become like we
Or
shouldn't.
doesn't wanna be
Not
like you.
everybody
Yeah.
wants to be like you.
Yeah,
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 100%.
yeah.
Not
Oh.
everybody can become like you. Not everyone wants to be like you. And really,
That's
bakit
okay,
ba?
yes.
And that's fine. And I want them to remember that that's the environment that they had with me. That it was perfectly fine to be. As long as wala tayong, sinasaktan, no? Yung mga ganon. Kasi baka may mga mag-misconstrue ng message. But, but that's the kind of leader I hope that they remember me as.
For me, I hope they remember through watching me that leadership doesn't have to be loud. It's important that the people that we work with feel good about themselves, about being with us, right? That the leader doesn't have to always stand out. In fact, sometimes the best scenarios or the best situations, you don't even know that the leader is there, right? And I remember when we talked about why we wanted to do this podcast anyway, right? We wanted to share stories that will maybe we don't even know if it will impact a life, but we know through meeting people, through interacting with them, that sometimes the simplest stories that we share create such a huge impact in their
That's
life,
true.
right? And to me, that makes it all worth it.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. Kahit konti lang.
Diba? Kahit
Yes.
konti lang.
Oo,
Kahit ganun lang.
Yes.
Maano lang. Diba? Sometimes,
Makurot lang.
Makurot lang. Kasi sometimes yung may naikwento ka lang, biglang may nagkiklik sa kanila na
Yeah.
iiba yung trajectory ng buhay.
That's true. Very true.
And
On that note,
On that
magpapasalamat
note, yes.
tayo sa ating sponsor for today because they generously share
Yes.
their workspace with us.
Yes.
And hindi huhulaan ulit natin kasi nasa likod natin. It's Workable. Thank you so much for sharing your space with us today.
And thank you for sharing your time with us today, for dropping by and
Listening
having,
to us.
Yeah.
Okay, till our 10th episode.
Yes. Uy, pag 10 double digits. Wow.
Syempre.
Kung umabot kami sa 10th episode, I hope you don't forget to like, subscribe, and
And
hit the notification bell.
Yes, nakuha na.
Okay,
Very
so,
smooth.
yes.
Dati po bell notification sinasabi.
Oo. Gumaling ka na after
Hindi nila
9
talaga, hindi sila
episodes.
makaget over doon.
Oo.